say the road to success is paved with failures. And speaking from personal experience, I know that's very true. Life's a continual learning experience. Throughout our lives, we keep rising and falling and picking up lessons along the way. Or hopefully we pick up lessons along the way. And some of these lessons are going to come from experience, yet others are things we learn watching other people or reading books. And in today's show, Mark, Creedon and I discuss a series of life lessons from Robin Sharma, who's a best-selling author of books like The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Now, I think these lessons will be relevant in your property investing career or whether you're in business, entrepreneurship, in your relationships, in fact, in life in general. And hopefully by the end of today's shows, you're going to have some great ideas. You're going to have some inspiration to make new plans for the coming year and make next year the best year of your life. So welcome to today's show.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
Robin Sharma is a best-selling author, he's a motivator, he's a personal development guru, and he's widely considered one of the top leadership and personal mastery experts and speakers in the world. Now, I'd recently read a list he created of 53 lessons he thought would provide some great things to think about. And today I'm keen to discuss these with Mark Creedon, founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind. And I hope they're going to be some lessons that could kickstart your mindset to make the best of the little bit that's left of this year, but make the most of the coming year. Hi, Mark.
Hello, Michael.
Now, we both like reading from experts from around the world and learning, and I thought some of Robin's thoughts were interesting to share with you. I'd love to get your ideas, and let's go through them in no particular order. His first one was, why resist change when it's the main source of your growth? That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, it is. I think he went on, Michael, to say that change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and beautiful at the end.
Now, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. But I guess one of the constant things is change. And most of us don't like change. We like to be in control. The more things we feel in control of, I guess the better we feel. And boy, have the last couple of years given us lots of things that we are not in control of, Mark.
Yeah, Michael, there's change that we've had no control over. But I guess the other way of looking at it is that change brings opportunity. In most cases, change brings opportunity. And really, I guess it comes down to this sort of, cup half empty, half full concept that you can look at change as being a negative impact and you can resist it. But sometimes, that's just like trying to swim upstream constantly. Or you can say this change is inevitable. It's going to happen. There's nothing you and I could do about COVID. There's nothing we can do about some of the world events that are happening. Mm-hmm. But what opportunities do they present for us?
Sure. Well, I think that's a really good way of thinking about it, because if you don't change, it'll be the same. And most of us are really not where we want to be in all areas of our life, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whether it's money, relationships, finance, whatever. So unless you change the outside world won't change. And if by chance you get lucky, you win a free kick, as we talk about in football, you suddenly win the lottery or you inherit some money or you get some extra bonus at work, unless you grow up and change, if somebody suddenly gives you a millionaire and you don't have a millionaire's mindset, you're going to lose it. And boy, have we seen this in people with property, people who inherit money, people who get a lottery. You can't drive around in a Maserati with the mindset of a Hyundai.
No, you absolutely can't. With all respect to all those Hyundai listeners.
They're very good cars.
Oh, they're great cars.
I used to make fun of Hyundais, but they're nice.
Oh,
okay, here's next little talk. It's much better to fail trying than not to even get into the game.
I like this one because I guess if you've not failed, then you can't succeed. And for you to succeed, you actually have to have previously failed. Michael, I don't know anybody who's successful today, whether it's people like Robin Sharma or people that we know personally, who actually haven't failed at something previously. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we also know some people who have tried to succeed and we've watched them fall. And the reason they fell was because they hadn't previously failed.
That's an interesting thought, and I think it's worth just following through a bit. But as I've often said, I'm a real success at failure. But we have seen people, and I know there's a number of people who should have used your services as a business coach, and we've talked about them and we've seen them, and they thought they're invincible, and they got caught out. And it has nothing to do with the current issues of COVID or external factors. They hadn't grown to the next level.
No, they hadn't. It's a bit like the Icarus who flew into the sun, thought he wasn't going to melt. But we've seen it time and again where people, they think they're invincible. They think that they can just keep going, and then suddenly they fail. But I guess the really big thing with that is what happens is people give up too soon.
Yeah.
So when they fail, they then go, oh, it didn't work, and they give up. And yet, if you look at it, in most cases, great success comes after great failure.
Very much so. And just because you fail doesn't mean you are a failure. It didn't work this time. You found out another way it doesn't work, and you're one step closer to finding out how it does work. So you're right. It's not how often you fall down, it's how many times you get up.
Yeah,
you haven't come so far just to come so far. Let's go through a few more lessons from Robin Sharma. The more you invest in growing and developing your mindset and ways of seeing the world, the more everything you touch transforms into a breathtakingly positive way.
Yeah, I mean, you and I talk about this a lot, that the reality is the more that you take a different view and mixing with the right people. But the more that you take a positive view on the world, the more likely you are to see the positive things in the world.
Now, mixing with the right people does make a big difference, and that's why I'm involved in a number of masterminds, as are you. And in fact, I know you run a mastermind for our clients, and in many of our directors at Metropole are part of that as well. But you've got to hang around the right people, other successful people, don't you?
Well, you do, because I believe success breeds success. And the other thing I find, Michael, with successful people is truly successful people are incredibly giving. They're very happy to share their success. They don't have a closed shop mentality. So we find in our mastermind group, everybody's really happy to share. They share their wins, their lessons. They help each other to step up and move up to the next level. So attracting the right people around you, I think, is a vitally important part of the success journey.
Well, interestingly, what you said, most people wouldn't understand. Why would successful people who are already successful spend even more time trying to improve themselves? They must be greedy. No, that's not the case at all. They're just wanting to continuously grow. And I think they also recognize that there's only so much they can do on their own. So as a mastermind group, you learn concepts, you've got content, but it's also the collective knowledge and the communication makes a difference. I know a lot of business people we work with at Business Accelerator Mastermind and successful property investors, they're actually lonely on their own. They actually don't have a lot of people to talk with about their successes and their failures.
Well, for the very reason you just said. So there's that perception that if you're going out learning more, that you must be greedy. So if you're successful, sometimes it's very hard to share that success because people think that you're gloating, that you're boasting, and that you're being insensitive to those who aren't succeeding. But really, all you're doing is trying to share that as a motivator for those who are coming after you and who would like to achieve that level of success.
I actually found it interesting at the recent Mastermind Intensive where people in a whole range of industries, services, products, retail, most of them actually had the same challenges, didn't they?
We see that all the time. In fact, when they get together, as they do in our Zoom sessions and in the intensive sessions as well, that's one of the big takeaways they have is, I didn't realize that I'm employing 2 people, this person's employing 340 people, but in fact, they've got exactly the same problems as me. It's just on a different scale.
Now, somebody's going to be saying, hey, I'm not in business. I'm listening to this podcast because of property, but it's actually much the same. That's why I've run a mentorship program for many years, and people have got the ability when they become clients of Metropole to talk with other people, but also they actually come to join us at Wealth Retreat once a year when they get into a room of other successful people. So I guess the message from that particular lesson was keep growing, keep developing your mindset, because unless you change, it won't. I guess there's a common theme there. You also said success has less to do with hard work and more to do with massive focus on the few best opportunities, Mark.
Yeah, because if all you do, Michael, is just hard work or, run faster on the treadmill, you're not going to get any further. You're just going to run a lot faster. Whereas instead, if you take a high degree of focus on some great opportunities, it's not about working harder at everything. It's about working smarter and harder at the important things, the things that actually really matter.
Okay, as you've often said to the clients at Business Accelerator Mastermind, there's 100 things you can do in your business, but you only have to know that the three things that you've got to focus on at the moment. And it's actually much the same with property investment. When you first get into it, it looks like there's a myriad of things, millions of things you need to know. Now, you actually probably need to understand 3 or 4 main principles first. Otherwise, the others don't really make a lot of sense, Mark.
No, absolutely. And I think that's the advantage of, again, we get back to sort of surrounding yourself, whether it's with other people, whether it's with peers or advisors, Michael. The advantage of that is you don't have to get your head around everything, be it property, be it investing, be it wealth creation, be it business. You don't have to know everything. You need to know a good 2 or 3 basic principles and then surround yourself with the people that know the rest.
Now, I'm not going to go through all 53 lessons in Robin Sharma's list, but the next one, when I read, I had to put this down to actually get your thoughts about, because it resonated with me. Maybe because the age I am, and I'm not just a parent, but I'm also a grandparent. But Robin Sharma said, adore your parents. You'll miss them when they're gone.
Yeah. No, I think never a quote truer said. I mean, it's very true, isn't it? We both have lost both of our parents, but
yes.
I miss my parents all the time. But I guess the thing about adoring your parents is that the thing that I've learned about that is I accept that my parents made mistakes and that I've learned from that. I accept that they always did the best they possibly could. And I always try and take on some of the wisdom that they've imparted to me and now impart that on to my children and grandchildren. So I think that's a really lovely saying.
Well, his next one was sort of along similar lines. He said, learn to love yourself. It's the great rule for being loving with other people.
It never ceases to amaze me. I think that we all love ourselves more than other people do, yet we care more about their opinions than our own.
That's interesting, isn't it, Mark? You're right. Yes.
And as I said to you, in fact, only yesterday morning, you can't control other people's conduct or other people's beliefs or behaviors, or the only thing you can control is the way that you choose to react to it. So it's about looking after yourself and caring about yourself. It's like most things in life, Michael, the more that you take care of yourself, it's like, the message when you fly on the plane, fit your own mask first before assisting others. I think it's a really important lesson to learn.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know Robin Sharma, why are we listening to what his bits of advice are? I think it's really important to only take advice from people whose shoes you'd be prepared to swap and do what they're doing and live the sort of life they're doing. Because there's lots of people out there giving advice, but they've got a right to an opinion, but they don't necessarily have a right to advise you. But Robin Sharma, and yes, some people say, oh, look, he's got a vested interest because he does personal development courses. But he says money invested in personal development and professional growth generally has a 30 times plus return on investment. I actually think it's even better return than that, Mark. I know that once a year you and I get together with a team at Metropole and a small group of people at Wealth Retreat, and they sometimes wonder, why would I spend $12,000 in 5 days to get away and learn from people when I could do it in books or on the internet or listen to podcasts? But when we've seen the results they've had, whether it's in property investment, in wealth creation, and it's not all about money and wealth at Wealth Retreat, because a lot of it has to do with personal development, how they step back, and more than half of them are business people. When you see the return on investment they've made on that, it's actually virtually free for them.
I think absolutely. It's one of those things where I don't use the term life-changing very often, but time and again, in all the years I've been coming to Wealth Retreat with you, Michael, it is life-changing. I've just seen people who are prepared to come along, they're prepared to make that investment, but I think the return they get from that is way more than 30x. And I guess the other really interesting thing is it's Wealth Retreat's one of those things now. I was trying to do some calculations the other day. I think this next year will be my 9th or 10th Wealth Retreat. But do you know, this year when I went to Wealth Retreat, I still made notes of things that I was learning at the back of the room, 9 years on.
Well, not only you. Pete Warden, who's been there year after year, you see him feverishly taking notes. We saw Simon Kirstenmacher this year sit at the back, and then he spent time with you and me afterwards. The experts who are there to improve and learn and grow, as did a lot of our team as well. Now, we're running Wealth Retreat at the end of April in 2023, and we've already now started to open the door. So if you're interested to join us at Wealth Retreat 2023, I'll leave a link in the show notes, or go to wealthretreat.com.au and express your interest, because we have started taking, actually already, I think there's 25 people coming from last year. So people are coming back a second and a time and a third time. That's nice though, because it's a blend of already successful people and people who've been there and new people to the community as well. And I speak to everyone who comes along to Wealth Retreat to make sure that the time and effort that they're going to expend to come there is going to be worthwhile. So go to wealthretreat.com.au or click a link in the show notes to find out more about it. Now, another comment or lesson from Robin Sharma: when your dominant business focus is to deliver outrageous amounts of value to your customers every time they do business with you, they become fanatical followers who tell the world about what you do. Now, again, this podcast is about money, success, and property, but I know a huge percentage of people who listen are also in business, not just the business of property investment. And that's why I love having these sort of chats with your focus as the founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind and my partner in that. So he was saying, deliver amazing value.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember there, Michael, is money's just a reward. I mean, if you really want to succeed by all standards, then money shouldn't be the major motivation. And in fact, I don't know anybody who has a very high level of success where money is their sole or their primary motivator. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people have succeeded because they wanted to be rich.
Yep.
But they've never succeeded without first adding value or solving a problem. So in lots of ways, money is actually the reward for the value.
Yeah. So I think it's the same whether it's property investing or whatever. You've actually got to create a service, a product, deliver something that people want and need, and then deliver it with good value. Don't try and take the last cent out of everybody, because what goes around comes around in many ways. Okay, the next lesson from Robin Sharma: doing huge dreams we've never done can be frightening, yet when we push the edges of our limits expand.
I forget what the law is, Michael, but it's the concept of a gas filling a space, that, the gas will fill the space and the space will expand to meet the gas. And it's the same with your thinking. It's amazing when you get somebody who has a very sort of a narrow view of things and you get to expand their thinking. They haven't grown their brain. Their head isn't actually any larger, but their outlook on the world has actually grown. So just the ability to push yourself to the limits and watch those limits expand.
Now, I'm just going through a list of lessons he's written down, and there seems to be some recurring themes. I think we've sort of discussed this, but it's a different wording, where he said, join a mastermind group. It's just remarkable what being in a room full of people who are smarter than you can do to your own performance. And I think we've often said, Mark, if you're the smartest person in your team, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And, Michael, we've come across both in property investing, in life in general, certainly in business, and people that fall into that category. But it really is interesting when you get that group around you. We spoke before about, how in our mastermind group, people are willing to share. But the other thing, Michael, is, if I can just go back to Wealth Retreat for a minute, one of the things I really love about Wealth Retreat is how willing people are to share in Wealth Retreat as well. You just get in that room with people and they're happy to tell you their success, and they're happy to tell you how they did it, and they're happy to motivate you and push you along. And it's that kind of, rising tide lifting all ships concept, isn't it?
It very much is. Now, we keep talking about Mastermind, and I've introduced you as founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind. So for those who are just wondering, what's all that about? What's he talking about? Maybe you could explain what Business Accelerator Mastermind is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Mastermind is a coaching program. It's aimed for service business owners and professionals in private practice who have a great business, but it's just so reliant on them. They couldn't step out of their business for 6 weeks or more, and there's more money in the bank when they come back than when they went away. So what we say is, if you've got a service business or a professional practice, you'd like to double your revenue in half the amount of time you work in it, then that's exactly what we do with our clients. It's exactly what we help them to achieve.
Right. And it all started because you became my business coach over a decade ago, and it worked well, and it helped me achieve what I want to achieve. Now, I'm still working, but I'm choosing who I work with, what I do, how many hours I work, and I'm still working because I'm having fun doing it. But then we started referring clients to you, and I thought, hey, this is too good. So we became business partners, and you and Caroline, your wife, and the team, and I help people build a business, not have a job. So if you're interested in having the same business coach I have, there'll be a link in the show notes. Go to metropolemastermind.com.au. Now, but this is a common theme that most successful people I see are prepared to pay. They're prepared to invest in themselves to improve, just like our property investor clients are prepared to pay to have a strategic plan put together. Now, interestingly, the next quote is, our biggest enemy is our own self-doubt. We really can achieve extraordinary things in our lives, but we sabotage our greatness because of fear.
It's interesting because at Wealth Retreat, one of the questions that you ask people is about this question of fear. And most people talk about fear of failure.
Yeah.
But in fact, fear of success can be just as debilitating. In fact, Michael,
it's sometimes called the imposter syndrome, isn't
Yeah.
it? People don't think they're deserving of it.
Yeah. And I know a couple of blokes, Michael, who have sabotaged themselves over the years.
Yep.
And we've both learned great lessons from that experience. But it's really interesting once you move away from that and you pass beyond your fear, just what is actually possible.
That's right. The next lesson he gave us was to become successful, first learn how to be happy. Too many think that the route to happiness is to get success. Untrue. In other words, you've got to be happy first and then successful, not the other way around.
Yeah, I'd hate to be successful or miserable.
You've got to be grateful. True wealth isn't how many properties you've got or how big your business is or how big your portfolio is. It really has to do what you're left with when they've taken all that away. So unless you're grateful, you're going to be unhappy and all the rest isn't worth it. Another lesson was, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, you're actually a very good example, Michael, because you just said before that you're still working, but you're doing the things you love to do. So you can continue to grow your success. But imagine if every morning you woke up and you dreaded what it is that you had to do and you were just doing it because you were chasing more money. More money or more success. But in fact,
some people are going to say, I'd love to have that problem. Don't worry about it. I'll take the money. But really, trust people who've been there around the block a couple of times. That's not the answer, is it?
100%.
Okay. If you try and do it all yourself, you get very little done. Good point.
Yeah, well, the most productive people delegate and delegate well, I think. So
isn't that one of the biggest challenges you see as a business coach, that business people don't want to delegate?
It is. In fact, I had a session with one of our mastermind members. He's a very, very successful business operator in Sydney, Michael. And we were talking about how people were coming up and getting things done. And in the end, I had to say to him, the biggest issue you've got is not people stepping up. The biggest issue you've got is you not letting go. So once he saw that and once he realized that he could delegate effectively, suddenly a whole bunch of opportunities opened up. And then he could start to work on the things that actually really mattered, that made him happy, that generated more wealth, etc. Okay.
The next point he made was the real key to getting great things done is to stop doing so many good things. So if you want to get one or two great things done, forget the good things. In other words, be selective in what you do.
Oh, we often say that. I mean, and you said it before, I will always say in your business, if we just talk about business for a minute, but in your life, at any given time, there's probably 100 things that you could be doing. But the reality is there's probably only 3 to 5 things that you really should be doing right now. And so the more you focus on those things and the more you drill down into getting those things done really, really well, then the more likely you are to actually accelerate that success.
So a little hint for those listening is make a list of the 25 things you'd like to achieve in the coming year. And once you've written all those down, narrow it down. Find a list of 3 things you really, really want to get done. And then don't even try doing the other one. So to move forward and spend more time on those 3 important things, you're going to have to let some other things go. So I guess I know at Wealth Retreat and similarly at the Business Accelerator Mastermind, we tell people to make a list of what they're going to start doing, new things, what they're going to stop doing, and what they're going to continue doing. So I'm not saying stop everything, but there's not enough time to do all the good things, but there's more than enough time to do a couple of great things.
Very true.
You can change the world or you can worry about fitting in, but you can't do both.
Isn't that an interesting one? So I mean, the reality is we worry so much about what other people think. We spend so much time, worrying what other people think or how we keep up with people. And what is it, Michael? You often say you shouldn't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 23. I'm sure you use different numbers, but you get the concept. We're far better off focusing on the things that we could be doing to achieve our greatness or to have the impact on the world that we want to have, and less about worrying about whether we're fitting in with what is an accepted social norm, if you like.
Yeah. become one of the rare people who don't know how to quit unless it's really time to quit. So, yeah, sometimes you've got to stop banging your head against the wall.
Yeah, sometimes you do. Sometimes you just got to go, do you know what? Enough's enough. I've got to quit.
Yeah.
But I think the thing, can I just add to that? I really think the really important step about that is if you do quit because you're sick of banging your head against the wall, you have to just stop for a moment, take stock and ask yourself this question. I've quit, but what did I learn from this?
Yes.
What did I learn from this? And then that's how you take that learning and make sure that the next time you do that, you're not going to follow down the same rabbit hole and end up in exactly the same situation.
Right. 2 more lessons from Robin Sharma. Second to last one is small little details done excellently and consistently stack up into something the world sees as mastery.
I don't know if it actually was Bruce Lee who said this, but I'm told it was. And he said, I don't fear the man who knows 1,000 moves. I fear the man who knows one move, who's practiced it 1,000 times. It's getting those small things right every time. And that's actually what creates mastery. I mean, Michael, it's the old jack of all trades, master of none, is it not?
Very much so. And it's the same in investing, that people try doing one type of investing, maybe for capital growth, and I'm getting bored with it, so I'll do flipping, and then I'll go into cash flow, and maybe I'll look at real estate, commercial real estate. You only become an expert if you do something 100 times, not do 100 things once. And you know you're an expert when you can get consistent, repeated results, whether it's in your investing, in business, or in any other area of your life.
Yeah.
So don't try and do great big things. Just get the small details right, and then just stack one on top of the other. And the last lesson from Robin Sharma, and I think a good one to finish on, is life is short, so have fun.
It's a really important component of, I think, what you and I live and breathe. We believe in the way that we run our lives, the way that we run our businesses, that there's still time for fun. Do you know there's still time
It has to be.
Because if you look at we spoke about before about things like COVID and all these world events that are going on at the moment, if all you did was focus on those things, I mean, it's a very bleak picture. If you don't throw some fun into the mix as well and make sure that you are actually, presumably we're only here for one round of this, so my plan is to have some fun along the way.
Sure. So I guess in summary, life is a continual learning experience, and we're going to keep rising and falling and getting up and down. So the important lesson is to pick yourself up along the way. And I hope my chat with Mark today has given you some things to think about as we're heading into the holiday season. Is not that far away, and into what's going to be a better year. Last year at the beginning of the year, Mark, we actually did, I think, a great podcast where we didn't look at all the things that went wrong in the year. We looked at all the things that went right. And
Yep.
I'd love to do that again with you, because a lot of good stuff is happening in the world, isn't it?
All the time. And Michael, I've told you before, I have that good news app on my phone and I have a look at it every morning, because the reality is if you look for it, there's good news and there's good people and there's good things happening in the world.
Fantastic. And you're one of the good people in my life, so I look forward to catching up with you again real soon, Mark.
It's always a pleasure, mate.
Well, we really didn't talk much about property in today's show, but I hope you got some benefit, because this podcast is not just about property, it's about success, it's about wealth, it's about money too, no argument about that. But there's more than one way to measure your wealth and your success, and if we can learn some lessons, as I discussed with Mark today, hopefully that'll help you become more successful as well. Now, if you did get some benefit from this, if you learned something from this, why not tell somebody else who you think would also benefit from the Michael Yardney podcast? There's a share button on every podcast app. I think there's 3 little buttons on the bottom of the Apple podcast app. Or just tell somebody about the Michael Yardney podcast. Or why not tell the world by leaving a review? Now, we spoke about a couple of things in the show as well. I'd mentioned about Wealth Retreat, and you could go to, I'll leave a link in the show note, wealthretreat.com.au, and also leave a link about Business Accelerator Mastermind, because if you're in business, it'd be great to use the same business coach I do, Mark Creedon. But in between these shows, and we're going to come back regularly with property, success, money shows, but in between these shows, you can catch me on social media. Just look for Michael Yardney, or join my private Facebook group where every day I leave some tips and tricks about property and money and success, just go to Facebook and look for the Property Update Facebook group. Hey, and I've got a way of saying thank you for subscribing to this podcast. You can just go to podcastbonus.com.au. I'll leave a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, where you can download a bunch of free ebooks and reports. My way of saying thank you. I'll be back again real soon. But before I go, maybe I should just mention that there's over 400 podcasts in the library of this podcast, each of them great lessons, and I find that it's easy to listen at 1.5 times speed, so why not go back and listen to some of the old lessons? But as I said, I'll be back real soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?